welcome back to A Pain in the Art. Today we're going to be talking about whatever promotes your boat. So we have Phoebe with us and we have Robin with us. We're just going to talk about social media marketing, how to create a brand for a show, I suppose. And yeah, so Robin, how are you finding creating a brand for the South Africans?
So, in terms of creating the brand and the performance art of the South Africans, it's been in the works since 2016, and Pulp and Pith have been, who are our design company, have been really great in orchestrating the colours and the imagery and also the font. And so, we feel over, the website and all our social media pages, our brand in a sense, is pretty consistent. The issue we found is integrating the new show in terms of the correct colours and in terms of somehow making it look like it's related to the new show, but without it stepping on the toes of the first one, or people getting confused and thinking that this new show is replacing the first one, or the show's gone under a branding change. But Sonia, who heads up the design component of Pulp and Pith Design, she's been so great in helping design the new artwork, even though when I had my first meeting with her, the colours of the South Africans are red and orange and yellow. And Sonia said to me, well, with this new show, we're thinking of going blue. And my panic just escalated and went through the roof. And she looked at my face and she said to me, she was like, don't worry. I know that you, she was like, don't worry. I know that you want to keep it consistent, but it's going to relate in. And part of me was just pleading with her, being like, please, Sonia, don't ruin the colors. Like, please, it's yellow and it's red. And I've just spoken to my team and this is how it has to be. But now that the new design of the African families come out, it's brilliant. And the blue looks great. But it's kind of learning how to keep the social media element and the social media campaign with the two shows and the contrasting colors now. Trying to keep that consistent is something that I just feel like I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And Phoebe, that's where you come in, because you kind of have a way better idea on social media than I do, and you seem to have it way more tucked up underneath your belt, and I feel like I'm just floundering around, just pretending. But how did you feel coming into the team and kind of being given the task of, doing social media and taking over all these accounts that are already established?
I found it actually quite daunting at the beginning, mostly because this is public facing and this is what everybody is going to see. Even before they've seen the shows, before they've seen the trailers, before they've seen the artwork, this is their sort of first view on what social media, on what we as a brand have to offer. And so at first I was like, oh my goodness, what if I do it wrong? What if we go down the wrong route? But I think the most important thing is understanding that nothing is going to be original. You just need to pick the better ones to copy. And so I looked at loads of theatre companies, from the big ones, National and the Globe, and then to the smaller ones and the first up and coming companies. But the one that really stuck with me was Wildcard Theatre Company, due to their colour usage, just because it was so vibrant and brilliant, and every photo you wanted in a canvas that they had, and you got to know the team as well. I think that's a big thing with viewers, is they want to get to know people because it's just interesting. Humans are interesting. So that's why it was a little bit daunting just to know that it was going out to so many people. But I did sort of a mock-up of what I was kind of going to go down in terms of vibe, and also about what I wanted to see as a 21-year-old theatre goer, which is part of the target market for Edinburgh especially. And so a lot of that was to do with being able to pull out, so this is the type of stuff that they put up. So maybe I'll do that for my company. Maybe I can do that for my company, and so on. And so we started to, in terms of breaking the old social media into the new social media, with this 6-image picture, which was a really good way of breaking everything up, but also understanding that it's not necessarily image by image that's necessarily the most important thing, because when people find your page, they look at your page as a whole, not, okay, I'm going to look at this picture, this picture, this picture, and that's what's going to sell it to them. And so that, large image of one of the shots with the small flyer in it as well, with some information on, was able to get that info out as well as being aesthetically pleasing, which just meant that I think there was more intrigue in what we were going to put on next.
And what did you think of the South African social media before you came on board?
Wow. So I thought some things were very, very funny, and you almost created memes, which I think was great. I think that the biggest problem maybe was just who was consuming it, and I think that's the biggest thing sometimes, actually, is that who are you creating it for? Are you doing it for yourself because you are hilarious, or are you doing it for the people who are going to buy tickets? And sometimes it's like, oh, but it takes the fun out of social media. Oh, I can't put this up, I can't put this up. And sometimes you can. It's just more on where you put it up. So for the things that you guys put up, I'd have said stories all the way. Put them on your Instagram stories, even on your highlights, but not necessarily the stuff that, if you had a big reviewer went and looked at your page, that's something that would 100% see. But no. So I think it was just that transfer in from potentially 2016, which is when it was first sort of conceived as an idea, into sort of 2018, especially how much social media has changed since 2016.
So this just makes me feel really old because I just don't know social media in its most intricate form. I just feel like a social media platform is a social media platform, and Instagram is the same as Facebook, and Facebook's the same as Twitter, and social media is just that. And then after our first initial team meeting, I just sat there listening to you talk, being like, damn it, well, I don't know anything. It's like that Simpsons quote where Grandpa Simpson is like, I used to be up with it until they changed what it was. Now what it is new and scary and I don't like it. And that's like exactly how I feel about social media, because the platforms are all very different and require like different interaction, don't they?
Well, what it is continuously changes from day to day and between all of the social medias. And I think mostly between Instagram and Twitter. I think with Facebook it's slightly different. But with Instagram, you can almost picture the person behind the posts, because we all have different ways of posting, from captions, from everything. So originally, and this is something that I've actually learned through the process, is I thought one person should do the social media to make sure that it's consistent and the voice is consistent and the tone is consistent. But actually, varying that tone can help as well, because sometimes the way that I speak will really register with somebody, but maybe something that Yasmin will write, that will work so much better for a different age group or a different person at a different point in their life, including yourself as well. So it's not always bad if you're a couple of years older than us, it's fine. So I think that's the thing with the Instagram. Twitter is actually completely new to me. I actually only had Twitter at the beginning of this year, so it's really new to me. I have less followers than you guys do, so you're pretty big. So I'm still learning with that one. A lot of that is about who you're following. I think that's more who's following you and who you're following. The tweets that you like, the tweets that you retweet are sometimes more important than the stuff that you tweet. Also, the stuff who you're tweeting about. I think that's another thing that's important, because everyone likes a cheeky mention. They do. So when we're in Edinburgh, and if all of us went and watched a show, for example, as a team and a crew, if we then atted them, that could actually get a bunch of people to their theatre, which also means they might do the same in return, and it's just sort of this toing and froing between companies as well. I think sometimes people think all of this, or having such a vast amount of theatre in one place, is quite daunting. But actually, if we use it to help each other, then it can actually really help too.
How do you know about all of this? Because we're talking about it, and we're talking about the social media game. And we've spoken on another podcast about my friend Amy, who is a dancer, and me being a professional actress, how to play the social media game without forsaking our sense of authenticity, and creating art that has meaning but isn't necessarily pretty, and going through the ugly phase of putting up a show, which is the rehearsals. The rehearsals aren't pretty. I was talking about this last week. Like, I'm here in my living room by myself for hours on end, going over the show and trying to refine it and trying to organize props and the boring parts, the administration, the hazard reports, the information packs, the technical writers, the dealing with the press releases, dealing with the marketing materials, dealing with distribution, dealing with printers, dealing with the thickness of paper. It's all very tedious. It's not social media worthy, but everything is important in terms of getting a show up on its feet. I don't know how you know all this, and I don't know how you know about what it is when I feel like it's passed me by. But how do you get around this? Like, Amy and I were looking at each other last week being like, we don't know. We don't have the answers. We're not well known. We don't have thousands of followers. So we don't have the luxury of posting quote unquote unattractive posts because we're not there. So how do you get around the posting the ugly side of creating art and trying to play this social media game at the same time?
And I think this is answered in some of the big YouTubers, for example. It's finding that balance between relatability and being able to be like, oh my gosh, I could so imagine that happening to me, and also look at this pretty picture and look at, oh, how amazing we're doing. And it's just finding that the balance between the two, and mostly in terms of, do you put it on your story or do you put it on your main page? So it's that mostly. And in terms of how I know, I don't at all. I'm quite observant, so I like to watch. I'm a massive people watcher. I could literally just go to a cafe and watch people. Not a weirdo, but I do the same with social media, in terms of watching people and how their lives progress. And I think that nowadays, sometimes people have friends that they've never met before, but they follow each other on social media. And I was approached by somebody and they asked me to be an influencer. I said no for some very particular reasons, and it's about this authenticity thing, and it's about how dangerous replicating authenticity can be. And I personally think that taking pictures of you after you've done a 2, 3, however many hours that you can rehearse these things, and how physically and mentally challenging it is, especially with South Africans, because you are not just playing one character. There is not just one backstory you need to have in your head. And sometimes even, I'm sure sometimes you play a character and they're so part of you and you love them so much that you want to do them justice, obviously, and then you've got 3 others that you've got to do now as well, and that just is, amazing. But with that, I think people would really appreciate seeing all the bad sides as well as the good sides of you guys, after you've done those long rehearsals, or if, for example, with the merch, if the merch arrived and it wasn't perfect and it wasn't what we wanted, putting that up on social media with the story, or saying that, oh my goodness, this has gone wrong, those people that are your followers, and something that I've noticed is a lot of the people that are your followers are actually people who are starting out too and are trying to achieve the same things that you have already achieved. And knowing that that's normal for things to go wrong is such a comfort. That's when you're not replicating authenticity. at the same time, when something goes amazing and you can take a picture and it looks pretty and put a pretty filter on it, then that's equally not replicating that authenticity, which is the important thing, to ensure that you're not faking it. And everyone says fake it till you make it, and yeah, in a way, but when it comes to humans, I think not so much, you know?
Why is it so important? I know that sounds like such a stupid question, but what is it, man? Like, we're talking last week, and I'm so pleased you're here, because Amy and I were, after the podcast finished, we both kind of sat there and we were like, man, those are good questions, we just don't have the answers. But we were also kind of saying it's things like actors and creatives and artists now who get roles or get ahead. I just saw a bus go past yesterday with a new animated film that's like coming out, and I was looking at the names of the actors who had voiced it, and it was like Kristen Bell, and then it was John Oliver, and then it was Joe Sugg. And I don't know anything about Joe Sugg except he used to be a vlogger, right? Or he was a blogger or a vlogger or something. I know because he came to a show that I was once in, and somebody was like, that's Joe Sugg, he's blah blah blah, and I was like, I just don't know who that person is. But I was like, but I don't think he's an actor. And I was like, and I don't think he's trained. And he hasn't put in like the hard yards, and well, maybe he has, but not as some of, you know, my friends and people who have been doing this since their whole childhood. I mean, I don't know his background, but in my head, I was like, it's that vlogger with like 20,000 million people following him. Why is it at this point now where actors are being cast purely on the amount of followers that they have? Why is it that like you say, Instagram influencers are now being given bigger platforms other than people who really have an artistic creation and create theatre or create art or sculpt or dance or whatever those traditional elements are? And I'll just tell a little story of one that I saw that I was like, this is kind of sums up what I'm talking about. I have a postgrad in journalism, and after drama school I decided I didn't want to be an actress. I went through a serious bout of depression, and I was like, I'm going to be a journalist because that cures depression. So I went to journalistic school, and there was a guy there in my class called Stephen Fernandez, and now he is the editor of Remix magazine, and Remix magazine is one of the biggest magazines in New Zealand. And hi Stephen, if you're listening. You won't be, but hi if you are. And he, and people on the front are Winnie Harlow and Paris Hilton and Pink and all these massive A-listers. I mean, he's back and forth to LA a lot. He is very in the scene of LA, and I just kind of remember Stephen from Auckland University of Technology. Anyway, so he, after the Sri Lankan bombings went off a week ago or whatever it was, he posted a regram of, if you don't know what a regram is, it's a post of somebody else's post, just for those of you who are listening and doesn't know what a regram is, of a girl called Celine Wallace. And Celine Wallace was 2 years below me at drama school and has now become an influencer, like you would say, and has 11,000 followers and whatnot. And Stephen called her out because in the wake of the Sri Lankan bombings, she posted a image of her in Sri Lanka in a swimsuit, tagging the swimsuit company, tagging other people in New Zealand, brands she obviously either works with or has wanted to work with. And in the caption underneath, kind of mentioned the Sri Lankan bombings in passing, but very much had used this post to boost her profile and boost the fact that she was in Sri Lanka. And Stephen kind of posted to his story, post after post, and just said, like, this is the kind of disgusting behavior that influencers now start to get in on. He kind of just said, like, this is just appalling. Like, what are you doing? And just kind of said to the brands in New Zealand that she had tagged, like, this is somebody you don't want to work with. Like, look at this person. They're posting a photo of themselves in Sri Lanka in this swimsuit, but mentioning the bombings, but really using the bombing as a platform to create awareness around the fact that she's in Sri Lanka and just kind of escaped a disaster. And now, oh, don't worry, she posted a story being like, don't worry, I'm at the airport getting a foot massage, drinking matcha lattes. Like, I'm all safe. Don't worry about it. Just, yeah, you rolled your eyes. It's exactly how Stephen feels. It's exactly how I felt looking at it. And then she deleted the post. You know, I think there was a bit of backlash. And he followed up and called her out again and said, good, nice to see you've deleted the post. Don't worry about an apology. You know, you talk about it being dangerous. And yes, I think these kinds of things are things that really start to desensitize just people to the actual human issues that are out there. It's about the influencers who also post in terms of anorexia, you know, all these eating disorders, but you see these beautiful bodies and people start starving themselves in order to look like that. But why do you think the industry, if I can come full circle on this whole bloody story I'm saying, why do you think the creative industry is now wanting influencers or actors or people with bigger followers? Do you think it's money? But why is it now, is one industry bleeding into the next?
In terms of the influencer that you were talking about, I think it's important to understand that they are a product of what they promote, and the support that potentially is around those people who are young and have not experienced half of what they think they've experienced, and if they have experienced it, it's been pretty and shiny, and you know, and that, you know, people. She made a mistake 100%, and that's why she deleted it. And people called her out on it. Good, 100%. But at the same time, there is a lack of support for those people that become influencers. They're young, and they are, you know, something to aspire towards. Having that pressure is sometimes quite a lot. And I know throughout this process, sometimes I've put a post up and I've put a post up and I'm like, that wasn't what I wanted to. That wasn't perfect, and that's okay, because you've got to do them to know what not to do as well. And I think 100% she shouldn't have done it. At the same time, I'm not sure that this industry of social media and influencers has the right support network around people. People are creating careers out of social media, and there isn't a rule book yet. There isn't a textbook that you can read about how to do it. There isn't training like how you've had at drama school and so on. There isn't a list of tick boxes to complete, and I think that's sometimes part of the problem. At the same time, and just to approach another thing, which is about how many followers you've got, the Joe Sugg thing. It's the same reason as everybody buys Shreddies, but not Tesco own Shreddies. They taste the same. I've got them. Now I'm a student, I have Tesco own. But Shreddies has a brand, okay, and they have a network, and they've got this whole granny's knitting things, and it's approachable and it's accessible, and everyone loves it, from whether you're 4 to 400, and so that is that reason. And no, Joe Sugg isn't an actor. No, I don't think so. But at the same time, he has a connection with an audience, and that is going to bring in people to watch. And then you have to find that balance between, are we creating art for profit? And that is a whole nother story. But with that, if you want to create art because you love it, which is usually the reason why people start, I'm sure it's the reason that you wanted to do it, because there's that, it's just in you, and it's like, I have to, I just can't not. And it's the same for all of us, and the same for a lot of other industries. But we cannot do what we want to do without profit. That needs to be, even with Hollywood and also, but with the theatre industry now, is okay, we're doing it for the love, but we can't actually do it without money, which means that we have to put out what audiences want and need. And if that's Joe Sugg, then that's Joe Sugg, but there was a lot of other people in that show that did have training and did have done that hard graft and have not had enough money to go on a Tesco shop and have had to have Tesco owned Shreddies for the whole of their lives, and only recently have been able to have proper Shreddies. And if they want, that is okay as well. It's just this. It's a paradox, and it's Pandora's box. And if you opened it, then I might write my dissertation on it. But I think that's it. It's because it's this paradox of oh, and touchy, oh, I'm not sure we can say that, I'm not sure I can do this, what's the right thing to say, that holding your tongue is what's wrong. Because if you didn't hold your tongue, and if you didn't have this made up rule book, then maybe people would be more authentic.
Listening to what you said is just actually really fascinating, because listening to you being like, you can't do it without money, and you create art because it's in there, but X, Y, and Z. I'm sitting here being like, damn it, you're absolutely right, and yes, I create it because it's inside me, but you're right, I want to make money off it. When you kind of said like, oh, well, if you're creating for profit, and then you kind of rolled your eyes at that, and you were like, that's a whole nother thing. What is that whole like other thing?
Of creating something just purely for profit on the mainstream. Well, I have been part of amateur groups, and I've seen some of the best performances I've ever seen in some of those amateur groups. And they pay a fee to be in it. They're not getting paid anything. They're literally paying their membership, and then people in the local village will come and watch them, and that's the love of it. And when all these big corporations, Hollywood and or movies and films, and even on the National Theatre and Global, and all of these things, like there's a lot of people, a lot of stars and stuff on the radio have always said, oh, I do the TV and film because it pays more. Theatre is where it's at, that's where I get the biggest buzz. And I think that really sums it up, because I've been on film sets, and I know you've been on your fair few as well. I personally think they're the most boringest things in the world. I just don't like the whole opening a door over and over and over and over again for an entire day. I just can't. I wish I could, and I completely understand in terms of when you're filming it, and the crew and how important it is, because it's a craft, and it is, and the same with the acting as well, because it's a different style, isn't it? But the buzz, and where you must feel it when you come off the stage of South Africans as well, that you come off and you get that buzz in your feeling, and that is priceless. You can't put a price on that, and you equally can't put a social media post up. There's not words. If when people say, oh, I love theatre, that's because there's a lack of a better word to use. And so we're just putting all these posts up about social media, and it's to get a following, but really we should be seeing it as a platform to tell the world how much you love it and love doing what you're doing, because you can't ever replicate the feeling of coming off stage. I know I can't. I've never had it, whether it was when family member cousins are born, or when it's, I don't know, someone nice in your life has done something nice or whatever. You cannot replicate it, and you can't put it on social media. Knowing that you cannot replicate that allows you to have that authenticity, and you can see through people's posts on social media, the big stars, they're not posting them. I think that's the other thing. They have a team of PR people who are very good at their jobs, very good, who've done degrees and trained for it, and they know what's right and what's wrong. Knowing that there are not necessarily people behind those posts is where you stop seeing social media as a danger. And what's good about the social media for South Africans is that we are all people. All of us have backstories, and all of us have experiences, and that's why it's important to have me post a post, and Yasmin post a post, and whoever posts a post, is because we have that humanity behind it, and that's what you get the following for, the authentic following as well.
I have to say, this has been very enlightening. And I know that kind of sounds sarcastic, but I'm actually not being sarcastic. That just sounds like, listening to everything you're saying, I'm like, that makes so much sense. I don't think I like it. I don't think I'm still sold on. I still don't think I feel sold on how to bridge the divide, and actually that's a filthy lie, because I feel like I kind of do. Everything you're saying about posting things when they're going really right and posting things when they're going really wrong, and that relatability, makes a heck of a lot of sense. And actually in doing that, it solves that niggling feeling I have inside of trying to be authentic and trying to maintain that authenticity. So everything you're saying is absolutely actually on the money. And if I really digest what it is we've talked about, I like it a lot more and don't like it a lot less. Is there anything else you want to say for people out there who, like you say, are starting out, are possibly going to Edinburgh this year or doing other festivals, in regards to any tips into their social media campaigns?
Post the stuff that you want to post and that you find interesting, that you would follow. Know that this is for you and not anyone else. It's not necessary to make a profit, because if you're going to Edinburgh for the first time, I hate to break it to you, but profit isn't really a thing. It's not really a word we use. But if you do, well done. But I think it's your show is going to be amazing or not amazing, regardless of whether you have 1 follower on social media or 1,000 followers. And you can create a piece of theatre and never show it to anyone. And you can paint a picture and never show it to anyone. And the fact that you're putting it out there in the first place, that is the achievement. It doesn't matter if you don't have 1,000 billion followers, or you're not Kim Kardashian, or you don't crack an egg and then break the internet. But at the same time, use social media to show what you love, because what you love is the authentic bit. And that's okay. And just continue doing that. Have fun with it, If every job becomes tedious when it's a chore, have fun with it. Also, just a tip, and I only realised this when me and Yasmin started collaborating on social media stuff, is scheduling posts. Oh my goodness. So previously, doing them daily is really, really hard to do, because you think social media posts take 1 minute. They don't. Really, they don't at all. So what's better is 1 day, 1 hour, 2 hours, schedule every post for that week, and then get some shreddies, crack open whatever you want, a bottle of whatever, and then you're done for the whole week. And then you can see how they go. Even if you get 100 likes on one picture and 2 on another, learning what not to do is more important than learning what to do.
Okay, well, that's been, again, enlightening. Again, that sounds sarcastic. I don't mean it to. It's just my voice. But yeah, so that's been this episode of The Pain in the Art. Our next one will discuss fundraising. And thank you very much for listening if you've got this far. Bye!